What's up, Tan and J-Man Show Nation? This is Tanner Lee, one half of the Tan and J-Man Show. And on behalf of myself and my co-host, Josh the J-Man Munt, we want to thank you for listening to our podcast. While you're at it, on whatever platform you're listening on, please hit that subscribe button. And if it happens to be on Apple Podcasts, please give us a rating and review. That really helps us out. If you're interested in watching our show is recorded live every Monday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch that on the ISC Sports Network, on the free ISC Sports Network app, on the ISC Sports Network Facebook page, and their Twitter page. While you're at it, on those social media channels, please give us a like on our Facebook page. Please give us a follow on our Twitter and Instagram page at Tan and J-Man Show. And if you want to support our podcast and look great doing so, we have a merchandise store. You can go to any of our social media pages, click the link, click Tan and J-Man Show store, and you'll find whatever you're looking for. Short sleeve t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts, coffee mugs, you name it, we got it. So thanks again for supporting the podcast. Now sit back, relax, and here comes another exciting brand new episode of the Tan and J-Man Show.
We are back at it with another episode of the Tan and J-Man Show. Tanner is out in Denver where he watched Broncos get murdered yesterday by the Las Vegas Raiders. But sitting next to me is the smartest Lee I know.
Yeah.
Arik, Biggie, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, J-Man. Doing well.
You had a pretty good sports weekend.
I did.
Colts won.
We'll probably talk about some of that.
Yeah, I did not have a good sports weekend, which I've kind of come to expect at this point.
Yeah.
But the Tan and J-Man Show is brought to you by the Damn Landing. Whether you want an epic burger, hand-tossed pizza, hand-breaded tenderloin, seafood, craft beer, or a handcrafted cocktail, Damn Landing is the place to be. The Damn Landing is a bar and grill located on beautiful Lake Manitou, focused on freshness and quality. You can wash down their delicious food with one of their 16 beers on tap, including a constant rotation of today's best micro brews and domestic flavors, or a handcrafted cocktail made using fresh ingredients. Take in the fantastic views of Lake Manitou in their beer garden or outdoor bar area. Whether it be boats or wheels, the Damn Landing is the place to be, located at 1305 Ewing Road in Rochester. You have some trivia for me tonight?
Josh, I have some trivia for you.
All right, I'm a little nervous. This is the trivia master right here. I think 90% of the trivia questions Tanner gives me are from his father.
Just the ones you can't get.
Just the ones I can't get.
All right. Well, this is very Josh-like. I think you'll know this.
No, that's the kiss of death. Can
you name me the all-time leader in postseason strikeouts?
For a pitcher?
Yes.
Postseason strikeout, man. No. I'll give it my best shot.
This person has pitched in your lifetime. It's
pitched
not
in my lifetime.
By the way, I almost gave you one about the only pitcher to have 30-plus strikeouts in a World Series, and the guy did it twice. Could you have gotten that one?
30-plus.
That's before your lifetime.
World Series. I'm trying to think of guys that pitched in World Series. I would not have gotten that one. There's no shot.
Bob Gibson.
That would have probably been a good guess.
He's dominant.
Yeah, before that was before they lowered the mound, right? He was
they lowered
insane.
it because of him. He had like a 1.12 ERA back in '68. He used to play basketball for Creighton, and they
Really?
Harlem Globetrotters offered him back when that was a big deal. Yeah,
man. Birdie Bogey is brought to you by Noble Gnome LLC for fresh, locally grown, nutrient-dense produce from Bryce and Katie Romine of Mentone, Indiana. Like them on Facebook, follow them on Instagram, and check out their website, noblegnomellc.com. Get your veggies. Sticking with baseball, have you watched much postseason action?
I've done what you call commercial watching. When it's commercial something, I switch over.
You switch over to baseball.
But, I watched quite a bit of the Dodger Brave game last night.
That was a good one too.
It was a really good game.
Yeah, I think Dodgers got up twice, didn't they?
Right, 2-0, then 4-2. With Scherzer starting.
Yeah, with Scherzer starting, Jock Peterson, has taken over. I think he has 5 hits this postseason, and 3 of them are homers.
Oh, that homer hit last night.
Oh, that was a bomb.
That was a big one.
What was it, 459 feet or something like that?
Yeah, it was a big one.
The former Cubs are still playing pretty well. Chris Bryant has been eliminated, and so has Anthony Rizzo. But Jocktober, I mean, you look at the Braves, and you look at their makeshift outfield that they had to pick up at the trade deadline once Ronald Acuna Jr. got hurt. They traded for Adam Duvall, who's been their primary center fielder. They gave up nothing for him, gave up essentially nothing for Jock Peterson, gave up Pablo Sandoval for Eddie Rosario, who had the game winner last night, and he's been kind of their leadoff guy. And they traded for Jorge Soler as well, another former Cub.
Oh, yeah.
Those are 4 guys that have been incredible contributors since the trade deadline, where they were, since the All-Star break, they were, I think, a half game behind the Cubs in their record, which is just ridiculous looking at where the Cubs ended up and where the Braves are now have a 2-game lead in the NLCS. You still, you think the Braves will close that one out?
Well, I do now, but weren't they up on the Dodgers 2-0 last year too?
I think it was 3-1.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers won 3 straight.
Yeah. The Dodgers, when you lose with Scherzer, that's a tough one.
Yeah. Those are the games you need to win.
Kershaw, although he's not dominant anymore, he's not around.
No.
And
I mean, Trevor Bauer had his issues.
Oh, yeah.
He's
I
done.
forgot about him.
They've been going with an opener. I think in Game 5 of the NLDS, in Game 1, they pitched Corey Knebel, who's usually a back into the bullpen type.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have so much pitching depth, but I mean, you look at it, Dustin May, who was phenomenal the first month and a half for them in their rotation, arguably their best guy, he got hurt, and I think he might have had Tommy John surgery as well. And then you have Bauer, of course, and then Kershaw getting hurt. And they still somehow found a way to win 106 games, which is just ridiculous. I mean, it just shows that they are what the Yankees were back in the 90s. They just haven't won as much.
Absolutely right.
But I mean, it's tough to count them out even down 2 games and nothing.
I would have said Dodgers in 5 before the series, but now it's they're just hoping to get it to a Game 7 and see what happens.
And I mean, it was huge for the Braves to win those first 2, because now it's guaranteed to go back to Atlanta, where anything can happen. Dodgers are awfully tough at home. Wouldn't surprise me if the Dodgers win all 3 and they need to play at least a Game 6 in Atlanta, with Atlanta down 3-2. But I'm rooting for Atlanta. I think people are sick of the Dodgers. I know I am.
Yeah.
And then you look in the American League, there's 2 teams that have won a World Series within the last 5 years. 2 pretty unlikable, one very unlikable team in the Houston Astros, and then you have Boston out there. I think that's 1-1, isn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't followed that one as much. I don't like watching American League.
Red Sox hit
baseball.
2 grand slams in the first 2 innings on Saturday, I guess it was.
Yeah, first time I think ever in a postseason game where 2 grand slams were hit by the same team.
And if I read it right, this is Astros' 5th consecutive championship series in the ALCS. And if I read it right, the only 2 franchises that can match that in the live ball era, or since '68, I guess, were the A's in the 70s and the Braves.
Oh,
they're the only other 2 that's made 5 consecutive appearances. I know what the Cubs got to 3, didn't they?
Yeah, Cubs got 15, 16, and 17. Didn't win a postseason series after that. Dodgers, I was thinking today, Dodgers have been to quite a few in a row, but remember they lost to the Nationals in 5 in the NLDS back in 2019. Astros, they have the best offense in baseball, great pitching staff. They didn't need to cheat, which is the frustrating thing because they win 95 games without it. But, I mean, you look, last year they went to the ALCS and they were terrible. They were 2 games under 500. And the only reason why they got in there is because of the expanded postseason. And they still probably should have beat the Houston Astros or the Tampa Bay Rays to go to the World Series last year under 500.
Right.
They're annoying. I mean,
they are.
That's all I can say about them.
Yeah.
I mean, they've kind of embraced the villain mentality.
Yeah.
Who you have in that series?
Well, I'm going to go with the Red Sox, but I think some of America's, particularly some of the baseball people, would like to see a Dodgers Astros just to see what kind of retribution might be made by the Dodgers, because that's the one team fan base and stuff that has really got on Houston when they played early, because they cost them a World Series, supposedly. So,
and I mean, Yu Darvish was kind of at the brunt of that too. He was the guy that that got absolutely shelled by Houston, and he thought his career was over with. And luckily, he kind of revived himself in Chicago.
Right.
But Freddie Freeman talks about the Houston Astros, how upset he was because one of his good friends, Chris Medlin, had a couple Tommy John surgeries. He missed like 3 straight years of baseball, and he finally worked his way back with the Kansas City Royals, I want to say, and his one start back in the major leagues after like 3 or 4 years off was against the Astros, and he gave up 11 runs in two innings, and he never pitched again. That's the kind of stuff that really pisses people off, essentially.
Yeah.
And especially a guy like Freddie Freeman, who he's one of the good guys. And Max Scherzer said, hands down, the best hitter he's ever faced, although he's really, really struggled so far. He had a string of 7 straight at-bats where he struck out to start the NLCS. He had only, I think his career-long streak was 5 straight at-bats, and that happened 2012, I want to say. So he's, I don't know, I mean, he hit that huge homer against Josh Hader to win the NLDS, and he hasn't done a whole lot since.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I think we have a real good shot to get 2 Game 7s, which those are the best things in sports.
Right.
But I mean, that's all I really have for baseball. The off season's coming. And,
Cubs got a new GM, didn't it?
Cubs did get a new GM, Carter Hawkins from
Yeah.
Cleveland Indians. He was assistant GM. The Indians are one of the best organizations in baseball at developing pitching, especially starting pitching. I mean, you look at some of these guys. Shane Bieber was like a 4th-round pick out of, I want to say UC Davis or something like that. One of the California schools. He was not highly thought of, and then he turned into an ace. They have a few other guys that weren't really heralded at all, and now they're aces for him, including Zach Plesac from Ball State. He was a 13th-round pick, and now he's a really good member of a Major League Baseball rotation. But hopefully Cubs will be able to develop pitching. That's been a problem for really ever since I've been watching them, but that was kind of the one bugaboo with Theo's front office and his player development was just haven't been able to get homegrown pitching in there that can win games, and that's the one thing they need, and it seems like it's getting better already. But hopefully this Carter Hawkins can bring a new voice to a front office that has had the same people in there for a long time, and it's not really working anymore.
Right.
But moving on to college football, you had a big week.
Yeah, my and Tanner's, our Boilermakers, finally came up with a big win. I
had a feeling before the game that it was going to happen.
I wasn't. The point spread was 11.5, and I was pretty comfortable they could cover that, and not because Purdue's that great. This Iowa team is won exclusively on turnovers,
right?
And their offense is probably one of the 3 or 4 worst in the Big Ten. And, worried me the very first play of the game, they threw a 5-yard crossing pattern. The guy took it for 40 yards. I thought, oh, jeez. But then, 3 plays later, their quarterback throws a pick. And Purdue actually dominated that game.
Absolutely.
They even had a play where one of the interesting rules in sports, when the guy dove for the end zone, the ball came out. And I knew it did. They signaled touchdown. And I just hope it didn't hit the pylon. It did. So Iowa got the ball to 20, and I thought, being a Purdue fan, if anybody here is listening, a Purdue fan, they know what I'm talking about. Here it goes. So, the next 2 plays, the Iowa quarterback got sacked. They had to punt, and Purdue came down and scored anyway. So, yeah, they won a fairly convincing 24-7 game. For whatever reason, Jeff Brom has beaten Kirk Ferentz 4 out of 5 times, and David Bell has put up just ridiculous numbers against Iowa.
Over 500 yards receiving in 3 games, right?
37 catches for about 580 and 5 touchdowns in 3 games. Before the season, Kirk Ferentz said he's one of the best receivers he's ever coached against, and why they tried to cover him man on man, I will have no idea. I mean, Purdue's other receivers are fine, but there's not it's not like Rondell Moore's on the other side. So, but it's also probably the best quarterback performance I've seen from a Purdue quarterback on the road in maybe my lifetime. And I was thinking today, since I became a student there, 37 years ago or whatever, they've had 6 NFL quarterbacks, and this little walk-on chubby kid from somewhere in Illinois, he put on a show. But like I said, Iowa at number 2 isn't like Ohio State.
Right.
Iowa's probably going to finish somewhere in that. They're still going to finish fairly high because they play the West from here on in. And the West Division of the Big Ten is just historically bad.
It's insanely bad this year.
It's embarrassing. I got to admit, Indiana's in the East, and they've played just a ridiculous schedule, and they've got Ohio State this week, and they still got to play Michigan. But if Indiana's in the West, they'd be right there with Purdue, Minnesota, just, fairly average football teams that are fighting to win that West because, the West kind of relies on Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska.
Yep.
And Nebraska might be the most talented team in the West, but they can't win.
No, they're 3-5.
And Wisconsin it's a down year. So
we don't see too many down Wisconsin years either.
You don't.
Got to take advantage of it when you can.
Oh my gosh. They had a tussle with Army on Saturday night.
1-6.
Yeah. Army kept it, and they were hitting onside kick there with about 45 seconds to go to see what happens. So, but yeah, that was a great day for the Purdue fan base that desperately needed it. Losing to Minnesota 2 weeks prior, even though Minnesota's not a bad team, but Purdue had outgained them by 200 yards and had 16 more first downs and just somehow found a way to lose.
Especially at home.
On homecoming.
Yeah, and you're thinking after that, there's no way they're getting to 6 wins.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they find themselves ranked.
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
First time since 2007.
Yeah, and their 4 wins. Connecticut might be the worst team in college football. Barely beat Yale this week. Illinois, both teams had tons of guys out. It was 13-9 and just
It was the worst game I ever watched.
Yeah, it was awful. And Oregon State's a decent team, I guess. But that's all they've got. And they did play Notre Dame pretty tough. But I really don't even know what Notre Dame is either.
No.
I don't know if they're a top. Well, I think they're 13th, but
yeah, I mean,
who knows?
I was thinking that's the real Iowa we finally saw.
Yeah,
I mean, they weren't. It was going to catch up to them eventually. They weren't going to force 5 turnovers in a single game. And Petrus is awful. He's such a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
He ended up with 4 interceptions?
Yeah, 2. The last 2 probably didn't matter.
Sure.
But the last minute or half the game. But yeah, he's not. He doesn't impress me. But tell me another big. Who's the after the Ohio State kid? Who's going to be second team All Big Ten?
Probably Michigan State's guy.
I watched him play IU. He was
bad.
He was bad. Tanner Morgan,
maybe Tanner Morgan. I watched Adrian Martinez once this year for a half.
He's been bad. No offense, Illinois' quarterback's bad.
Brandon Peters is the worst quarterback in college football. In my opinion.
Wisconsin's kid isn't that
He's
good.
awful. Mertz is terrible. Northwestern, that Helinski has now been starting for him.
Yeah.
He's better than Hunter Johnson.
Yeah, but so's about everybody else.
Yeah.
Penn State's quarterback's okay.
He might end up being the second guy.
He might be the second guy.
I think Iowa's good, but they're not number 2.
No, they're like a number 20.
That's what I was thinking, 15 to 25 range. That's still an unbelievable road win, though.
No, it's been forever. The Rob Henry team beat number 25 Northwestern on the road 12 years ago.
I remember that.
And Purdue has a reputation for beating number 1 or 2 teams unranked, but most of that was done against Notre Dame in the early 50s and 60s. It'd always be the second game of the year, and Notre Dame's always ranked in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
So would Purdue beat them, it'd be a notch under their – but that's also a bad thing because that means Purdue's never ranked. That's why, that's why there's not a god. I saw Illinois was on that list too.
Really?
Yeah, and Minnesota. So some of these Big Ten teams that are also Rans are the ones that have a chance to. Didn't Illinois beat a number 2 Wisconsin team about 3-4 years ago on a field goal at the last play of the game?
It seems 3 to 4 years ago. That was only 2 years ago.
Yeah, so they've done it too. Yeah,
was Wisconsin number 2? I think they were 5.
Okay, they were very
but
highly
still,
ranked there, yeah.
And that was such a major fluke.
Yeah. Well, I'm just hoping this one isn't.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I mean, Purdue has Wisconsin this week. Haven't beat them since 2003.
Right. Which it's funny because they're somehow ranked. They're at home,
and they're still
Wisconsin's worst team they probably had in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And Wisconsin's 5-point favorite.
Are they 5?
Yeah.
I saw earlier today they were 3. This Wisconsin team's terrible. I think Purdue's so much better than they are.
We'll see. Purdue's defense has given up 84 points in 6 games. So you say, that's 14 a game, but you got to discount Connecticut. So really, they've given up 84 in 5 games.
Playing Connecticut's like playing a Indiana State type or a FCS sort of school. Though Indiana State, remember a few years ago, took Purdue to the butt.
If Ricardo Allen didn't pick one off, it'd been 0-12 that year. And that Indiana State team was 1-11 in division, division they're in. So that's the Darrell Hazel years.
Gotta love those years.
So it's years like that make a win like this
absolutely
feel a lot better.
Absolutely. You want to go through and pick Big Ten games with confidence points?
All right. I've got some written down here.
Starting with Illinois traveling to Penn State.
Well,
Penn State's 23.5-point favorites.
I actually have Penn State for 5.
I actually have Penn State for 5 as well.
Yeah.
That spread seems a little low, to be honest. Penn State's ranked 7th.
Yeah.
I don't think Illinois is going to get a top 10.
Coming off a loss, which they would have beaten Iowa if their quarterback hadn't got hurt.
Is Clifford okay? I haven't heard a word about him.
I don't know what
happened to him
either.
Northwestern travels to Ann Arbor to face Michigan.
I have Michigan for 4.
I have Michigan for 3. Northwestern won't be able to score against them.
Right.
Wisconsin at number 25, Purdue. I think Ross-Ade will be rocking this Saturday.
I do too. It is a sellout, and it's their only sellout of the year. I've got Purdue for 1, but I might be, sometimes you go with your heart over your head. But
I also have Purdue for 1. I think they're quite a bit better than Wisconsin. Purdue, I think the shocking thing about Purdue, of course, their schedule has helped them not give up a bunch of points.
Right.
But their defense is so improved compared to the past few years.
It is.
That I just don't see Wisconsin being able to score enough. I mean, Wisconsin with Jim Leonard calling their defense, he's one of the hottest defensive coordinator, head coach sort of candidates in the country. I think it'll be a really low scoring, something like 21-17, but I think Purdue ultimately pulls it off.
Yeah, it's if Wisconsin gets a lead and can just take their big offensive line and run it down their throats, then there's going to be some trouble.
I mean, it's going to be a game of ball control, definitely. If Wisconsin has the ball a bunch, Purdue's defense might get worn down.
Absolutely.
But, I think Purdue will be able to move the ball against them. Maryland at Minnesota.
I have Minnesota for 2.
I also have Minnesota for 2. Minnesota's 5-point favorites. Maryland looked great early in the year, and then Iowa kind of crushed their spirit a little bit when they forced 7 turnovers. I think it'll be a really good game. This seems like the type of game Minnesota would lose at home, and it wouldn't surprise me if it happens, but I think Minnesota wins.
I agree. I can see that too. Minnesota, probably still has the worst loss in the Big Ten this year when they lost to Bowling Green.
Yeah. Terrible. That's a terrible loss.
You're favored by 30.5.
Yeah. And that probably played into why they ended up going into Ross-Ade and beating them too.
Yeah. Although Bowling Green's 3-0 against Purdue historically, so I feel their pain.
Is that where Urban was? Was he at Bowling Green?
Was
he?
Well, the best Purdue team in my lifetime, Bowling Green beat him.
That's right. Was that
Kyle
the
Orton? And they had 9 guys that ended up playing the NFL on defense. None of them were stars by any means, but they all made teams.
You have that many guys on your defense that end up playing in the NFL.
And you can't beat Bowling Green. Yeah.
Ohio State at Indiana, only 5 games this week.
Yeah, I had Ohio State for 3, but you obviously have them for 4.
I have them for 4. Ohio State's 19.5-point favorites. I think they're starting to hit their stride too, and I think they're pretty clearly the best team in the conference at this point.
They can score
45
on you in a heartbeat.
It's just another Ohio State quarterback that's going to be a superstar, and C.J. Stroud. We're going to have to watch him for the next couple years.
Yeah. And Indiana cannot score.
Can't score, and I'm assuming Penix is out this week as well.
And he had been playing very poorly this year, but Jack Tuttle the other day, because Michigan State to me is one of the confounding teams in the country because they're 7-0, but they, much like Iowa, do not feel like a top 15 team, but we'll see.
Yeah, I completely agree. Going through here, some top 25 games. We have an interesting one here. 6-0 Oklahoma State, fresh off a win against Texas, travel to Ames to face Iowa State.
Oh, boy. And you talk about a team that's kind of disappeared as the year went on. Although, what are they, 4-2 now?
They're 4-2 now, and Iowa State's 7-point favorites against number 8.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State, and I guess the upset. But
yeah, that's a shocking upset because Oklahoma State is probably the second best team in Big 12.
Well, then Oklahoma probably would like Oklahoma State to keep winning, even though it's an arch rival, just to have a big win at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. But, if Oklahoma runs the table, they're getting in because they're Oklahoma.
Yeah. And, they switched quarterbacks to that. I don't remember his name. Is it Connor Williams?
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, Spencer Rattler is replaced by I think it's Connor Williams.
And he looked great against TCU on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking Iowa State, though. I think they get it done at home. They need a big win like this. They came into the year, I think, ranked 7th. And they lost to Iowa because they turned it over 5 times. They lost to Baylor as well.
Well, you remember Iowa started the year off by beating IU, who had ranked 17th, and then beating Iowa State, who was ranked 7th. And right away you thought, oh, my God, Iowa's got two of the best wins you could possibly have. Well, neither team has done a lot. So,
yep. Number 10, Oregon traveling to the Rose Bowl to face UCLA. UCLA's 2.5-point favorites. UCLA's unranked.
I'm going with UCLA, the old Chip Kelly Bowl.
That is the old Chip Kelly Bowl. Oregon lost to Stanford a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take Oregon in the upset. A couple top 10 teams going on the road to unranked teams are underdogs this week. LSU with Ed Orgeron announcing his resignment. Did they fire him or did he just resign?
They were going to fire him, so he resigned.
They had a big win over the weekend, though, against Florida.
They did.
Traveled to Oxford, Mississippi to face Ole Miss.
I'm going to take old Lane Kiffin. He's been winning at the buzzer here the last 2 weeks. He's had golf balls thrown at him and all kinds of stuff. Those Tennessee Hilljacks, they
don't mess around.
They ain't happy.
No.
They ain't happy.
I think Lane Kiffin is finally hitting his stride as a college football coach. USC hired him way too young. The Raiders hired him way too young. Now I think he's doing a pretty good job there in Ole Miss.
You think he's got his eye on that LSU job?
He might. Yeah, he might. He might just hop over to the other sideline on Saturday.
Yeah.
Unranked Clemson traveling to number 23 Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I keep thinking, Clemson will start coming around. I actually watched some of their game Friday night against Syracuse. Clemson's not that good.
They can't score.
And that shocks me because that quarterback last year came in to play against Notre Dame and he looked phenomenal. I'm thinking, I don't know, this kid might be better than Trevor, but I don't think he is.
No, they got shut out by Georgia. Of course, Georgia's shutting everyone out.
Yeah.
They got beat by Georgia Tech as well, and they couldn't score points. Kenny Pickett for Pittsburgh has thrown 21 touchdowns in 6 games this year.
1 pick.
And only 1 interception?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to pick Pittsburgh in this one.
Yeah, Pitt's due. I mean, for the ACC, it'd probably be a good deal, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's not. Clemson's not a great team this year.
No. UTSA, Texas San Antonio, who's 7-0, is ranked. They beat Illinois earlier in the year.
Right.
Traveling to Louisiana Tech.
Is Illinois their best win? I mean, I don't even know who they play. I
assume so. I mean, they're 7-0.
Yeah.
They played Lamar. They did win at Memphis.
Okay, that's a pretty good
win.
They
won at Western Kentucky.
Which I saw play IU. It's 33-31.
Yeah, they beat Western Kentucky 52-46, beat Memphis by 3.
Okay.
I'm not sure how good Memphis is this year. I think Memphis might be halfway decent. And now they're 4-3 and 7th in the America. But still, it's a pretty good road win. 3 pretty good road wins.
Yeah, I'm going with UTSA.
I completely agree. Louisiana Tech is 2-4. They used to be really good.
Yeah.
A former great rival here, USC traveling to Notre Dame this weekend.
It's funny when they call that a rivalry. When I think of a rivalry game, it's when the two fan bases just hate each other.
Yeah.
Purdue, Indiana, Michigan State, you name it. Auburn, Alabama,
Illinois, Missouri.
But these fan bases don't even know each other. But you're right. It was must-see TV for years.
It was fun during the Bush, Leinart years. So
I'm saying Notre Dame. USC's just had a tough year.
Yeah, they're 3-3. Clay Helton's no longer there. I, for some reason, still think Urban Meyer ends up there one way or another. Notre Dame's only 7-point favorites. Thought they'd be a little more, but I think the Irish win pretty handily.
Yeah.
One of the more disappointing teams in college football, the Miami Hurricanes, are 2-4. They are hosting the number 18 NC State Wildcats. Is it the Wildcats?
I think it's the Wolfpack.
Wolfpack. Screwed that up.
Yeah, that's all right. Because always makes me think of that movie. Now I can't even think of the name of the movie. The 4 Guys in Vegas. It's
oh, yes, the Hangover.
Hangover, yeah. I'm going with the Wolfpack.
Yeah, the Wolfpack. I can't believe I screwed up there.
Eric King's out.
Right? Is he?
Yeah.
They were supposed to be good this year. They were ranked in the top 15 or so.
They started out playing Alabama, and that's never a good thing.
That never helps, does it?
Yeah.
Sticking with college sports anyway, we're going to do a little word association. I say a person or team or whatever, and you give me the first thing you think of.
Oh, wow. All right.
This is all 90s and early 2000s Purdue players. I think I have 7 basketball, 8 football. First guy is Konzo Martin. First thing you think of?
Winner. He was a guy who made 0 3-pointers his first 2 years and became a good shooter and actually had a cup of coffee in the NBA. And obviously Purdue needed him with Glenn Robinson and not much else. And Konzo became a good. He just seemed like a winner.
I tell you what, I can't stand him now.
I know you don't.
Illinois cannot beat him for some reason. I think this is the year they should. Fine, of course, last year was the year they should have beat him too, but this year should be the year. Number 2, Glenn Robinson.
He remains the best basketball player I've ever seen at Purdue. And you can say anywhere, but rarely does anybody average 30 and 10.
Right.
And he did that.
I mean, that's like Kevin Durant at Texas, and he did it a couple years too.
He did, and he went up and beat Michigan to win the Big Ten title, and they had Howard and Rose and all those. It was the year after Weber, but he was on his own. Konzo was okay, but he was a stud.
Brad Miller.
Probably the most underappreciated Purdue player of my lifetime. He ended up being a 2-time NBA All-Star. He was kind of a hack, but I mean, he grew up bringing the ball up the floor. He was a guard, and then he grew 8 inches his freshman year. And the Purdue crowd never liked him because he had all these whiny facial expressions and stuff. But I remember Katie, when they got against the press, they could give it to him, man-to-man press, and he could bring it up on their center, even though they didn't have a good point guard. So he went to 3 Sweet 16s. I mean, he was a good player. You just don't ever think of him.
Brian Cardinal.
Yeah, he was, hated by the rest of the league.
His wasn't his dad like the trainer at Illinois?
He dreamed of going to Illinois, and then he ended up going undefeated against Illinois.
Of course he did.
9-0 in his 4 years.
Was that during the whole was it Deion Thomas scandal at Illinois? Did that kind of hinder?
I think it was.
Was it after that?
Lou Henson actually was nearing the end at that time, but his dad was the trainer. He wanted to play there. It's just he wasn't offered, and he became
that happens.
He played
so
in the NBA
much
11
too.
years.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
a long time.
Yeah,
Willie Dean.
He was explosive. He led the Big Ten in scoring. He never met a shot he didn't like, but he was a little bit like Carson Edwards.
I was gonna say kind of like Carson Edwards. Kenny Lowe.
Great defender, nice guy. We when Tanner was little, we'd go to the Gene Cady basketball school, and Kenny Lowe was always the nicest kid out there. So,
final basketball one, Carl Landry.
He's undervalued. He played on a terrible Purdue team, and then he luckily got a knee injury his 4th game of his senior year. Him and David Teague both sit out, and then they came back, and Matt Painter got him to the second round of the NCAA tournament. So I always think of those two guys as bringing the program back, kind of. But Landry was really good.
He was good, and he played in the NBA for what, 8 to 10 years?
I think he scored 9,000 points in the NBA. So
what did he make an All-Star team too?
He did not.
Okay,
but he was a nice player.
Moving on to football, Jeff Zagania.
He played 17 years in the NFL.
He was a Dolphin. That's the only reason why I put him on the list.
Yeah, he was a good defensive tackle.
Mike Allstott.
He's obviously the best running back in my lifetime at Purdue, and they had nothing else. And I remember he had 270 yards on IU middle of the 3rd quarter, and the school record was 280 some, and they took him out because they were up so big. But yeah, Allstott, he was a beast.
Matt Light.
He blocked for Breeze and stuff. Probably the best lineman Purdue's ever had. I don't know a lot about linemen, but
don't either.
He's been lucky he played with Breeze in college and Brady in the pros.
Vinny Sutherland.
I still see him around. He's nothing but a troublemaker on campus over these. I think he had 2 NFL catches with the San Francisco 49ers, but he was white lightning. They had the bubble screen, and he'd just catch that thing. And, he's one of those kids you play with in the playground in 3rd and 4th grade that didn't have a brain in his head. He'd run straight into you. That was Vinny Sutherland.
Roosevelt Colvin.
Yeah, he's maybe one of the best defensive linemen, and then he ended up becoming a linebacker in the pros. And
he was kind of that 3-4 outside linebacker, wasn't he?
Yeah, and his daughter now is key on the volleyball team, and his son is now ranked 80th, and Purdue signed him or committed him. He's going to be a junior in high school, and he wasn't even in the top 50. Now he's number 80, and they think he's Yeah, he was even offered to go into that one money league now that they got high school kids.
Oh,
but
yeah.
obviously they don't need the money because Roosevelt played in the
Right.
NFL for
What is that? The overtime? Is that the overtime league or something like that?
They recruited him already as just coming out of his sophomore year. But
John Standiford.
yeah, he was efficient. He got a taste of NFL action too. Still, yeah, he was a good player.
Stu Schweigert.
Yeah, he was all-time leading interception guy until Ricardo Allen came along. But he was a big get for them. He had won the 100-meter state championship in Michigan over Charlie Rogers, who went to Michigan State, became number 2 pick for the Lions. But he never became an NFL star. Made it to the Raiders for 4 or 5 years.
Last one here, Taylor Stubblefield.
Yeah, he's Penn State's receiver coach now.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had one of my most memorable plays at Purdue. He caught a 97-yard touchdown from Kyle Orton at Notre Dame Stadium last time Purdue won at Notre Dame. It's been a lifetime ago, but yeah, those are good memories. You could have named a lot worse athletes than the ones you just named. I've been through Andrew Ford and Chris Hardish. And
I've never even heard of those guys.
Oh, no. I could name you a bunch that played for Hazel, too.
Word Association is brought to you by the Rhett Lee Attorney at Law. That's all I got for you. I couldn't find the reads that Tanner had for them, so I apologize. But if you have if you have some issues, go contact Rhett Lee Attorney at Law.
Yep.
Moving on to on this day in 1924, Harold Red Grange's finest college football game where he had 4 long touchdown runs.
The Galloping Ghost.
Galloping Ghost. Yes.
The Iceman from Wheaton, Illinois, too.
That was his other nickname?
Yeah.
Never heard that one. Let's see. On this day in not a whole lot of good ones. Have a bunch of Olympics.
Really?
In October.
Well, Mexico City Olympics in '68 was in October.
Yep. Then that's the Olympics. 1974 Chicago Bull Nate Thurmond becomes the first NBA player to complete a quadruple double. He had 22 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, and 12 blocks.
That's a good game.
That's a pretty good game.
Yeah. He's from Bowling Green.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, speaking of Bowling Green.
Yeah.
On this day in 1992, the first non-American team to win a baseball World Series game as the Blue Jays beat the Atlanta Braves 5-4.
Is that the year before Joe Hunter hit one off Mitch Williams?
Yeah.
Not Joe Hunter.
Joe Carter.
Joe Carter. 2 ex-Cubs, by the way, Mitch and Joe.
Yeah, wild thing.
Yeah.
And who'd they trade Joe Carter for?
They got Sutcliffe, didn't they? Wasn't it Mel Hall and Joe Carter for Sutcliffe?
To Cleveland, right?
Yeah, it was actually a great trade at the time. And then Joe Carter became a very good player.
Sutcliffe ended up winning the Cy Young in '84, didn't he?
16-1.
2009, Tom Brady throws 5 second-quarter touchdowns against the Tennessee Titans, which was an NFL record for one quarter. If I remember correctly, in that game, it was snowing like mad in October.
It was like 59-0.
Yeah, 59-0 in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is a terrible one. On this day in 2012, Tigers beat the Yankees in the ALCS to win the series. They swept the Yankees that year, and then they ended up getting swept by the San Francisco Giants.
Oh, yeah.
On this day in 2013, in the NLCS, the Cardinals beat the Dodgers 4-2, and the Cardinals end up losing to the Boston Red Sox, I think in 6 games. But that's going to do it for On This Day.
All right.
Which is brought to you by, let me find it here, Proformer Print House. For all your printing needs, go to Proforma Print House. There we go.
Okay.
That's all I got for On This Day. Moving on to the NFL, do you have 3 winners and 3 losers?
I do. I wrote those down. Now I got to see what I wrote down. You want to start with the winners?
Yes.
My first one's kind of odd, but I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, and not just because they beat the Bears. Mm-hmm. But I think he made some fans of the hip hop crowd and stuff just by what he did to the Chicago faithful. Uh-huh. It might be the last time he plays at Soldier Field as a Packer, and I think he wanted to let him know.
I've always owned you. I mean, he wasn't wrong.
No, when you're 22-5 now. Yeah. But he one of the reasons I said that is now Green Bay is done with 4 road games. They played 4 road games in their first 6, and but so is Arizona.
Which is 6-0.
They're 6-0. So Because, to me, Green Bay is really kind of an average team with two great players.
Yeah, Devontae Adams.
But they've already won that division.
Yeah. I mean, the Lions are out of it.
Well, the Bears are 3-3 and the Vikings are 3-3, but neither one of them even start to scare you.
They won't beat Green Bay at all.
No.
One of my winners is the Arizona Cardinals, 6-0, going into Cleveland and blowing them out. I didn't know they'd played 4 road games already. I think they're the class of the NFC at this point.
They really are, and they were one of mine too. The only really bad game they played, Minnesota had a shot to beat them, and the kid missed a 37-yarder.
Yeah.
And they weren't real impressive against, who was it, San Francisco a week or two ago?
Yeah.
But they also proved they can win ugly. When you can,
which is huge because they put up a ton of points, and you just think they're going to outscore people. But the fact that they can win ugly, I mean, they have a great defense. Their defense is forcing turnovers. Chandler Jones might be the best pass rusher in the NFL. No one even talks about him.
He didn't even play yesterday.
He didn't even play yesterday?
Well, he had COVID.
They still have J.J. Watt.
Who made an impact yesterday.
Yeah.
He put Baker's shoulder back in the
That's right. That's right.
back out of socket, so to speak.
Who's your other winner?
My third winner was actually Baltimore. They've been winning by the skin of their teeth all year. And, I could go into that Colts game Monday.
Oh, yes.
I thought Frank Reich – the Baltimore couldn't stop the Colts. And they got down around the 20 with 4 minutes to go, and they ran it 3 times, went to kick a field goal, and they got it blocked. And then Baltimore scores too quick, and Colts come right back down there and have like a 45-yarder, and he missed it. And then once Lamar got the ball in overtime, you knew it was over. I mean, he just ate the Colts up the last quarter and a half.
He got hot. I think he had 3 incompletions in the second half in overtime.
And they probably dropped him.
They probably did. He's turned into a really good passing quarterback, too.
He's the most electric player I may have ever seen.
He's who people thought Michael Vick was. Yeah. And he's so much better than Vick ever was.
Yeah. And he seems to be a humble kid. I mean, it's hard not to like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
But my gosh, he reminds me. The only thing I can remember is when Reggie Bush was playing college. He seemed to be just so much better than everybody. That's kind of what Lamar feels like.
Sure.
I don't know how you stop him. How do you replicate that in practice?
You don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember last time, or the only time the Dolphins have faced Lamar Jackson happened to be Brian Flores' first game, and they won 59-0, I think. And Lamar threw 5 touchdowns. I think he did it in the first half, and he ran for 1.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do you stop him? There's nothing you can do to stop him. I mean, they lost. Who'd they lose to? It was week 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was trying to think who they lost to too. They beat the Lions on a 66-yard field goal.
They beat the Chiefs in week 2.
Down 11, and they came back and won. The Colts, they were down 19, came back and won.
It might end up catching up with them.
Yeah.
But I mean, they keep winning now. One of my winners, Minnesota Vikings, just to get to 3-3, going on the road to Carolina, who's now dropped, I think, 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold's not good.
No.
For Carolina. They're missing Christian McCaffrey, too.
They really do.
But the Vikings to get back to 3-3, get back to 500, with that extra playoff spot, that could be huge for them, having a road win.
The only thing you know for sure in the NFL is the Vikings game's going to come to the last second. They've won a couple, and they've lost a couple.
They consistently play super close games because they're not good enough to blow anyone out.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, what do you think of Kirk Cousins? I mean, he puts up great numbers. He brings his team back 2 or 3 times a year, but he's not the guy you want.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. He's a very good average quarterback.
He puts up numbers like these elite guys do. He just, for whatever reason, they can't find a way to win a bunch of games with him. He'll get him. He's a good enough quarterback to get a team to the playoffs, but he's not going to win a Super Bowl.
I know. When he was at Michigan State, I had no thoughts that he'd ever even play in the NFL. Yeah. So.
There's a couple Michigan State guys that ended up doing that where you thought no shot. Brian Hoyer's played for 14 years now or something.
Was that Slayton or whatever was on the Cardinals, the backup forever? Slater?
Yeah.
And then Connor Cook was god-awful, and he played for the Raiders.
He was supposed to be the best one out of the bunch, too, and he wasn't.
Yeah, you're right. Michigan State somehow had NFL quarterbacks.
They've probably been consistently the team in the Big Ten that's produced the most here within the past 15 years or so.
Until Ohio State in the last 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields is, but besides, Dwayne Haskins was a first-round pick. Forgot about him.
And then Cardell Jones.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He didn't come there to play school.
Probably the best one was that Miller kid, Braxton Miller, and he never even touched the NFL.
Yeah, he was wide receiver.
Yeah.
in the NFL.
Well, that's true. He did touch it, just not in the way he wanted.
3 losers.
You're not going to be happy, but I have the Miami Dolphins.
They are maybe the worst team in the NFL.
I don't know about that. They're not playing well.
Whatever luck they had last year has completely turned around to the point where they're losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars on national television, too, for that.
Yeah.
At that.
Yeah.
That was one of the more brutal. The worst part was when that kick went through to win the game. I didn't care. That was the worst part of it, because if they would have won, it would have been the most unenjoyable game of my lifetime.
And it looked like in the first half they were totally in control.
They were, and then they just let Jacksonville hang around.
Yeah.
They scored late, and then they hit that miracle field goal half that curved around, and yeah, Dolphins.
That's when
are
you know
awful.
it's not your day.
Yep.
It's 10. Even the announcer said, "Oh, he missed it. Oh, wait a minute."
There was no way that was going in. They just had to curve around, and it barely got in too.
By the way, NFL, how lucky have they been the last 2 weeks? They've had 2, quote unquote, fairly nondescript games on Sunday morning, but people watch.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting to showcase the number 1 draft pick this week, the number 2 draft pick the week before. Miami and Atlanta, neither one of them come in with a lot of following. They both got more eyeballs than they normally would.
Yeah.
And the NFL got eyeballs, and they didn't waste the quote unquote America's team or the Kansas City Chiefs or anything like that. So
they always put the Thursday night football game teams that usually you see on Thursday night, like the Jaguars and those kind of matchups, and they put them in London. Usually pretty good games. In London. Tanner's not going to be happy, but the Denver Broncos.
That's my second one.
losing they really got blown out too.
Did.
They were down 17 at one point, losing a home game to a team that had a coach resign in disgrace on Tuesday.
Absolutely.
Credit to the Raiders and Derek Carr for keeping the squad together, and then they went into Denver, a game really Denver needed to win that one. Home, they're favored by, I think they were favored by 6.
Yeah.
They're a loser.
Yeah, Denver and Carolina were both 3-0 3 weeks ago. Now they both look like they may go 3-14.
Yeah. The Chicago Bears are one of my losers. I know it's early in Justin Fields' time there, but you got to beat the Packers eventually at home, especially at home.
Yeah.
You knew they probably weren't going to, but you need a little better showing than what they ended up.
And I had the Washington Redskins, and I have this as a surprise for you. Washington's defense all year long, the only thing, they've given up the most points in football.
That doesn't surprise me because I had them in fantasy and I dropped them a long time, 3 weeks ago.
They've given up 1188 points in 6 games. That's
to
Purdue-like. That's 32 points a game.
They were supposed to have the best unit in the NFL,
I know. And the Heineke guy, he's okay. He's okay, but they weren't going to win with Ryan Fitzgerald. Not Fitzpatrick. Not if their defense is giving up 32 points.
Yeah, so we're going to go through and pick some games here real quick and confidence points. For the 3rd straight week, Tanner's not even here for me to rub this in, but for 3rd straight week, I've won the pick'em, and for the 4 of the first 6 weeks, I've won the pick'em.
Yeah, he's an embarrassment to the Lee.
He's an embarrassment to the Lee lineage.
He really is.
Starting with Thursday night, we have Denver at Cleveland.
Denver at Cleveland. I have Cleveland for 5, even though they're beat up beyond recognition right now.
I have Cleveland for 7. Cleveland has to start winning.
Oh, boy.
They've been sort of a disappointment. They've played 3 really good football teams that they've lost to.
I know.
But they have to win this one at home.
Well, particularly coming off a stomping. The first 2 losses were
it was embarrassing.
Either ors, the Chargers and the Chiefs, but this one was embarrassing.
Yep. Number 2, we have Atlanta at Miami.
I've got the Dolphins for 2.
I keep picking the Dolphins, and I'm doing it again this week. They have to win eventually. I think they're too good of a team to continue to lose.
I think they're better than Atlanta.
But at the same time, they just continue to lose, so it's hard to pick them, but I'm picking the Dolphins for 1.
Yeah.
Washington football team at the Green Bay Packers.
I don't have these the same. Oh, I have Green Bay for 11. There's only 13 this week, right?
Yes, we have 6 byes. We have Buffalo, Dallas, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Chargers, Jacksonville.
How are they going to start all the morning shows about Dallas next week if they don't play?
I don't know. The ratings are going to tank. You might as well just have like a black screen like they did. Didn't they used to do that back in the day at like midnight? TV would shut off.
Yeah, I remember those days. You actually had to go physically turn the TV off.
Yeah. Not anymore. Now I can just talk into my remote and it works well.
Yeah. I've got to Green Bay for 11.
I have Green Bay for 11 as well. Kansas City at Tennessee. Kansas City is struggling a little bit, especially Patrick Mahomes. He's thrown 8 interceptions.
Yeah. I've got Kansas City for 7. Did you notice Patrick's mom was saying, "Hey, not all interceptions are always the quarterback's fault."
No.
It's just,
I don't like that family.
And his brother
Yeah.
got caught dancing on Sean Taylor's number 21. I think it's purely an accident.
I'm sure it was, but at the same time, have a little bit of awareness of what's going on around you. That was just colossally stupid.
Yeah, that's not good.
He's a TikTok star, and he.
Oh, really?
So all he does is dance, though. He has millions of followers on TikTok, and he dances at every NFL stadium. He goes to every single game, dances at every NFL stadium, and he's turned into a major distraction for the Kansas City Chiefs. Somebody needs to say, Patrick, just have your brother stay home this week, please.
Let's not do that this week.
I actually have the Tennessee Titans winning.
Really?
Yeah, at home. I have it for 2 confidence points. I have Tennessee winning tonight against Buffalo as
Do
well.
you? They beat Buffalo by 20-some last year.
Yeah, killed them. I remember that. It was a Tuesday night game,
if I
remember correctly.
Just murdered them.
And we have the New York Jets at the New England Patriots.
I got the Patriots for 8.
I also have the Patriots for 8. New England lost a heartbreaker.
0-4 at home.
That's crazy.
And if they're at home again this week, that'll be 5 of their first 7. They're going to have to go on the road a bunch. But I don't know.
They're done.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 2-4. They're not winning the division. No one besides Buffalo.
But they played Tampa Bay and Dallas, 2 of the best teams. Right to the wire. I mean, they're kind of good. It's interesting.
I think Mac Jones is going to be a very good quarterback. He's super accurate. I don't really have a comparison for him because he's just one of those accurate kind of quarterbacks. Doesn't have a strong arm,
smart,
not mobile whatsoever. But he's just he's a winner.
He reminds me of Bob Greasy from the early 70s.
Bringing that style of quarterback play back.
Yeah.
Carolina at the New York Giants. I have New England for 8 as well. I don't know if I said that. Carolina at New York Giants.
I got Carolina for 1, but I think they're both terrible.
I do too. Carolina won those first 3 games.
I know.
They've kind of awoken.
The Giants, though, all 3 of their receivers, they're starting to both their tackles, their running back are all out. I mean, they're just and I thought Daniel Jones played fine the first 5 games. He played awful yesterday. I mean, and the coach kept running a quarterback sneak when he just came off a concussion.
Man.
I mean, my God.
Yeah, I don't know if Joe Judge lasts there much longer.
Yeah, the Giants are disarray, and this is the only game they have a chance to win because after that it's Tampa Bay.
Oh, man.
It's ridiculous. They've had Cowboys and the Rams the last 2 weeks. They got Tampa Bay next week and somebody else that's good the next week. So,
yeah, they're not very good.
No, they got
I almost feel bad for Daniel Jones.
I do. I like him, but he had only had 2 turnovers in the first 5 games, and one was a Hail Mary, and then yesterday he had 4. So I can't, it came back.
Yeah. I have Carolina for 5.
Okay.
Cincinnati at Baltimore. Cincinnati 4-2. They keep on winning.
I know. I've got Baltimore, though. They're kind of in a groove right now. I've got Baltimore for 9.
I have Baltimore for 9 as well. Yeah. We're kind of on the same wavelength here. I just think, if Cincinnati wins this, I think people will really start to believe in them.
Absolutely. And they had the Packers. They had 2 kicks to win it.
Should have beaten the Packers. Their kicker thought he made the field goal in overtime, and it hooked. Yeah. The anti-Jacksonville kick yesterday. I have Baltimore for 9. Philadelphia at the Vegas Raiders.
I got the Vegas Raiders for 6.
I have the Vegas Raiders for 6 as well. Man, I could see Vegas losing this one, though. It's just they're up and down. I mean, they won those first 3, then they lose 2, and then they bounce back. But I don't know if I'm a true believer in them.
Derek Carr might be the most underrated player in the league. He's
pretty
darn good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
You can win with him.
Yep. Detroit Lions, maybe the worst team in the NFL, travel to Los Angeles to face the Rams.
I got the Rams for 13.
I have the Rams for 12. It's going to be a whooping.
I hope Jared Goff plays well. Although I see Dan Campbell called him out of all his play. This week he says, Goff's got to play better. And I'm like,
man.
Detroit, the first 5 games, they were in like 3 or 4 of them till the bitter end. But yesterday, you wonder if they can come back after getting shellacked. Matthew Stafford's going to want to put up 16.
He's going to put up a lot of points.
And Goff is too, but he's not got it.
Stafford says playing the Lions is just like another game. It's not. No. He can continue to say that, but it's going to mean a heck of a lot more than it does.
Yeah.
Than he's saying it does.
I've got an interesting stat on Stafford if we have time at the end.
But, you can say it right now. We have time.
Well, there's a thing called, I just saw it when I was looking at QBRs today. It's called PAA. And it's how much quarterback plays above the level of the average quarterback.
Interesting.
It's kind of like a war for baseball.
Yeah.
There's 7 guys that are above a 7. Stafford's at 18.5.
Wow.
Mahomes 17.6. Allen 15.1. Brady 14.5. Lamar's 13. Herbert's 12.9. And Kyler's 12.7. There isn't another one until you get to 7.
Wow.
And that's David Carr, Dak, and Aaron Rodgers are all in that 6-7. On the meantime, Goff is minus 19. Zach Wilson's minus 18.
Oh, boy.
And Justin Fields is minus 17.8.
Man, I'd never heard that stat. Is
I hadn't
like
either. But
ESPN stat or?
Yeah, if you look under stats and then you look under QBR and they have all these different things that establish it.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, but you think about the guys that you'd want, those 7. Of course, you'd also want Dak and Rodgers. But you can't, I mean, all 7 of them are having great years.
Yeah. And they're just right around league average or so?
Yeah, league average would be 0.
Oh, it's 0. Okay.
These other guys are all above 12, and then you go clear down to 7 to get to the others. So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, Stafford's been putting on a show.
Yeah.
I have Cooper Kupp on my fantasy team, and he's been,
gosh.
he's been tearing it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Houston at Arizona.
Yeah, I got Arizona at 12.
I have Arizona for 13.
Houston's bad.
The Lions are bad, but I think Houston's worse.
Yeah.
I mean, they won that first game against Jacksonville, but I don't see them winning another one.
No. You know, the Colts had to be disappointed, only be up a touchdown yesterday at half. You have to be sweating bullets. But
and they ended up
Davis Mills, I mean, he's just a fill-in.
Bears at Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I got Tampa for 10.
I have Tampa for 10. I think they blow them out. The Indianapolis Colts travel to San Francisco.
My heart wants the Colts, but I got San Francisco for 3. You don't know who's going to play quarterback for them.
No, they said Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to practice this week.
Yeah.
Trey Lance did not look good in his one start.
No. He reminds me a lot of Kaepernick, the build, the speed.
Yeah. I actually have the Colts for 3. This will actually be the J-Man's Book of Prediction of the Week. Screwed that up. But I have the Colts winning that one. I think Colts are starting to hit their stride a little bit as well. I mean, they beat a bad Dolphins team and then a bad Houston team.
Yeah.
But they were right there with Baltimore, and it was nice for them to bounce back after that heartbreaking loss. But J-Man's Book of Prediction of the Week brought to you by Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance Agent Travis Watching for life, home, auto, renters, business, workers' comp, and farm insurance. Contact Travis at 219-869-4561. His email is travis.watching@infb.com. Before we go any further, this episode is also brought to you by Circle 15 Golf. It's a brand focused on bringing tour quality products and experience to the everyday golfer. Built on 25 years of tour experience, featuring the Genesis glove, the most durable and comfortable glove available in the patented Glove Hub, the first and only glove humidor on the market. Find them at circle15golf.com. We have our final game here, the New Orleans Saints at the Seattle Seahawks.
I'm going New Orleans just because I think Jameis is better than Geno.
I agree. But
I got for 4.
But I'm taking the Seahawks for 4.
Yeah.
I think Jameis is quite a bit better, but something about the 12th man, although it hasn't been all that friendly to them.
Seattle got tough yesterday in the second half. They just started running the ball down Pittsburgh's throat. So
yeah. That's going to do it for our pick'em. NBA starts this week. I don't know if we have a whole lot of time to talk NBA because we only have 3 minutes left. But hit me with that trivia question before we go.
Okay. My question was, who has the most strikeouts in postseason history by the pitcher? What pitcher?
He's pitched in our lifetime.
Yep.
Is he still playing? I can't imagine he's still pitching.
Well, you have a 3-stroke lead. I can't really give you that.
No, you can't give me a hint. I don't deserve a hint. In our Roger Clemens.
That is incorrect. It's kind of a shocker and why I use it. It's Clayton Kershaw.
Really?
204 strikeouts in his career. He's also got 13 wins, which is the 5th most in postseason history. But you got to think the Dodgers have played a lot of
playoff games.
So some of these guys that, like Bob Gibson, it was just World Series and nothing. I also thought it was interesting that the pitcher that has the lowest ERA with more than 40 innings pitched in postseason history is that Jansen. That's the reliever for the Dodgers.
Jansen?
Of course, he gave up a run on his one pitch last night. It didn't count to him.
Did they call that an error?
No, they called it a hit.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a rocket.
Yeah.
Kenley Jansen's been great in the postseason. Mo Rivera had an ERA of barely above 1.
Yeah.
John Lester has a great postseason ERA. Remember Madison Bumgarner's postseason in 2014? It seemed like he was pitching every single game.
Well, I can't remember my years, but Oral Hershiser had one like that for the Dodgers too.
88?
Before you guys were born. Yeah, Rivera's got 48 saves.
Mm-hmm. He's pitched like a full season's worth of games in the postseason.
Well, second most is Jansen with 18.
Really?
Yeah.
And he has, and then, what'd you say, 48?
Yeah. And then you also think Derek Jeter had 200 hits in the postseason.
That's full season.
It is.
What, 650 plate appearances?
158 games. So that's like having a great year.
Yeah. Man.
Doing it when it counts.
Mr. November.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me tonight there, Big E.
Well, good luck in Rockport, Illinois.
Yeah, Rockport, Illinois. I'm excited moving there this weekend. Tanner and I will be back next Monday in a different sort of setup. Be sure to turn in to Corey and Schultz next. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll be back at it next Monday.